Hello, welcome back to my studio. My name is Monica, and today I was going to sit down at my desk here. I have all sorts of paints pulled out. In fact, I cleaned it up a little bit once I decided that I was going to film this. But I have these little mini palettes, and they were gifted to me, and they come with these little trays that fit right in here. And the neat thing is when you pull this one out, it snaps right onto the edge. So you have 24 pans that you can work from. And I think that this is your water container, and it kind of hangs on the edge of your sketchbook or something. I don't know. I haven't used it yet, obviously, because it's not filled with any paint. But this closes like that, and I think this one comes out. But it just snaps together and then it fits in here. So this is a cool little travel palette, and one of the things that I like about this is that if I were to use this while I was sitting here at my desk, it doesn't take up any room. I seem to be having a little bit of an issue with my other, not an issue really, I'm just growing not to like it. So I have this gigantic palette, which unfortunately is busted. But this is my Daniel Smith palette, which is a mess. But it's well loved and well used, and I just find that it takes up so much room on my desk, and I don't like it at all, and I have a hard time positioning my water, and especially when I'm filming something. So I've been using my smaller palettes lately, and one of these is my mother's, and she asked me to fill it with the paint for her, and this is also hers, and I'm going to fill this one. So these two palettes here have 24 pans, and this one has 8. So I thought it would be kind of cool to film and show you how I decide what paint I'm going to put in this palette. And I know that when I was starting out building my own palettes, it can be kind of confusing. So do you just pick your favorite colors, and then when you're out painting somewhere or painting in your studio, you're finding, oh, these colors don't really work? So how to best choose the colors for your palette. So when I was in school, art school, we did a lot of color mixing. We did not use already mixed paints, basically. So when it came to any sort of green, we didn't use any green. All we had access to were primary colors. And I do have, I want to show you this palette because this is a palette that I use outside. And when you're limited to your colors, obviously you can choose your own colors, but if you want to mix colors, then your primary palette is what you'll need, and that's yellow, red, and blue, and you need a cool version and a warm version of each of those colors. And then it's always nice to throw in, if you have room, throw in a green or throw in a couple of neutrals like a Payne's Gray, a burnt sienna, burnt umber, so that you can mix those with your primaries and get some really nice variations. And that's what this palette, this came pre-filled, and I think the smallest palette that I have is this one right here, and this was this is from Greenleaf Blue, and they make their own watercolors, but this is just a little palette, and it's yellow, red, and blue. And I mean, you can mix all sorts of colors with just a primary palette. And the whole color mixing thing, I have another video on here that talks about color mixing for beginners. And there are just some basic principles that if you keep those in mind, you'll be successful in mixing. But that is the basis of how I choose the colors that I'm going to put in these pans, because this is a very limited palette. So I started off with, I have a mixture of tube paint. Most of them are Daniel Smith. Some of them are Winsor and Newton. A lot of these I'll pick up if there's like a clearance or something that I want to try, like this core watercolor pack that I bought. But for this, I knew that I wanted to do yellow, red, and blue, obviously, and I've got enough room in this palette that I can do some greens, and I can definitely add in some neutrals. So my first row, and I'm gonna fill them like this. So my first row is a warm and cool yellow. So I've got a Hansa yellow light, and you could use a lemon yellow as well. And then I'm using a new gamboge, but you could use like a cad yellow, something like that, a warmer yellow. And then I'm going to add in, even though a yellow ochre is considered a neutral, I'm still going to add that in for the first row on my palette. The second row, I'm going to do orange. Because I have enough room, I can mix yellow and red together and get all sorts of great oranges, but I've got the room for this, so why not? So I have a, let's see, I've got a cad orange, and I've got, this is a cad red, pale, and a cad orange. And then this one from Core, it is a pyrrole orange. So these are the three oranges that I'm going to put in my palette. Now the red is a primary. So I have a warm red, and this is a pyrrole scarlet, and this one is an alizarin crimson, and that is the extra for me. This would be, the quinacridone magenta is the cool red. Okay, so moving on to the blues, and I know that there are a lot of, I've read many arguments about blue, and blue's a little bit tricky as far as, you know, overall blue would be considered a cool color, but which one is warm and which one is cool? And I've read many theories on why one is one and why it's not. So if I were going to add just primaries, I would do an ultramarine and a phthalo blue. Now, for me, I believe the ultramarine has more red in it, so I would consider this ultramarine to be the warm and the phthalo blue to be the cool. And I am adding in my favorite blue, which is an Indian Throne blue. It's a color that I go to all the time, so I want to make sure that that's in my palette. And since I have room in this palette, my next row is going to be purple. And obviously that's something that can be mixed from the primaries. And I have all of these great colors. I have a handful of purples. I really enjoy using this smalt, and this is a dioxine purple from Core, which I haven't used a lot of, but their colors are very intense, very saturated, very vibrant, so I wanted to include that. And I know this is not purple, but I really didn't know where else I was going to fit this, so I thought I would add it in the same row as these. And this is opera pink, and this is another go-to color that I use quite a bit. And actually, I would probably, the purple are gonna be after my, probably after my reds. Then I'll go to the blue, and then next will be my greens. And I have a sap green, a deep sap green, and then I have this green gold. And I can mix all sorts of greens. Now that I've got yellows, I've got 3 different yellows and 3 different blues, so I can mix a wide range of greens. These are just extra and easy go-to colors. So I've got those, and I think I've got room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got room for 2 more rows. So this is what I decided on. I've got a burnt sienna, which is a must as far as I think a neutral color goes. It is great to mix with blue. You'll get some beautiful grays. I have a Payne's Gray, I have a sepia. And my next row after that, I have a neutral tint. And I really love this. It leans it's kind of a gray. And then I have Shadow Violet and Moon Glow. And both of these colors are really great to use for shadows. And they're two of my favorite paints to use. So that's how I went about selecting. I started off with the primaries. I picked a warm and a cool version of each of those, and then I did like an add-on, and that's just because of, the room that I've got in this palette. So let's talk about this one. This has only 8 wells. So what would I pick for this? I would obviously go straight for my primaries. So I would do a cool and a warm yellow, a cool and a warm red, a cool and a warm blue, and then I would pick 2 neutrals. You can just watch me as I go through here and fill these colors, and I'm going to be as consistent as I can with the warm and cool version. So let's say I put the cool version on this side, then the warm version will be here, and the extra will be here. That way it's all consistent. And I've also made, I'm making my own little palette card. This is some scrap watercolor paper that I have, and I've got 4 rows, and I don't want to do this double-sided. I want to put all of the colors on the one side, so I'm going to have to put 6 squares in each row, and then I'll just label it with my really tiny micron pen, probably in a 003 or a 005. But I definitely want to make sure that I annotate what color is what, because it's super inconvenient. Sometimes when you haven't used a palette in a while, you go back to it and everything looks just dark, and you have to figure out what's what before you can even start painting. So I'm going to get this mapped out first, and then I've got to do 2 of these since I have 2 of these palettes, and I'll probably do a little tiny one for this, although I'm not sure exactly where that would fit. So maybe I will just leave this one out. Okay, so I'm probably going to speed this up a little bit because it's going to be kind of tedious to watch, but I hope this was helpful. And if you've got any questions, you can leave them down in the comment section, and I check those all the time. So here we go. So I wanted to slow the video down really quick before I continued. I have a handful of toothpicks here, and this is what I like to use to spread the watercolor out in the pan, and it just makes it a little bit neater. And if there's any air bubbles in there or anything like that. But I can get a nice, even fill. You can see the difference between the two. And, this gives me both sides, so the next pan I can use this side, and then I can toss it, or you can wipe these off, whatever you want to do. Something else that you'll need is some paper towels or a rag. I like to, when I am working with my watercolor paint, I take a damp paper towel and wipe off the edge, because if you don't and put the lid back on and it dries, it gets crusty and the lid often gets stuck. I've had to take pliers before and try to get the lid off. So just wipe down the watercolor when you're finished with it, and it'll make your life a little bit easier in the future. So I'm gonna go about filling my pans, and I am doing one color, and I'm filling each of the palettes with that one color. The toothpicks come in especially handy when you're filling small wells like this, and this is how I filled my etcher palette that I use all the time. and I'll just show you this. And I know you've seen this in other videos, and some of these need to be refilled. In fact, what I might do is just pull this out while I'm doing all of these. It's really great to do all of these at one time. And actually, no, I'm not going to do that right now because these are separate colors. And I don't want to mix, especially with what I've got in here already. So I'm just going to continue on doing what I'm doing, and you can watch and see how this all comes together. Okay, so I am finished filling all of these wells, and for the little one, I have my cool and my warm primaries, and I kept them on the same side because I don't have a palette card for this one. And then I added in some burnt sienna and a little bit of neutral tint, and that will give me, or my mom, because this is her palette, it'll give her a little bit more of a mixing range for her primaries. And if you have an even smaller palette that maybe only has 3 colors or 4 colors, do primaries. And you're probably asking yourself, okay, what do I put in, a cool primary or a warm? Well, you can mix the 2 primaries together and get an in-between primary, which is what I would probably shoot for. And this is what I learned in school, because we had to make our own color wheel, which was it was a great learning experience, but it was not easy. So I would also suggest keeping a neutral in there, like a burnt sienna, so that you've got a little bit more of a variety when you're mixing. So a couple of other tips: if you've got a tube of paint that you haven't used in a while, it's been sitting, make sure you give it a little bit of a massage so you can get everything mixed in there. Be sure to wipe the rim off when you're finished, because you don't want these to dry and get crusty. It makes them really difficult to take off the lid. Something else, when you fill your palette and you're going to go back and label your colors on your palette card, make sure that you line up your paint in the order that you put the paint down. Because if you can't get to naming your palette card right away, you're not going to remember what you used. And this way, it's all laid out, and if you have to come back to it later, it's a no-brainer. And I did switch out a couple of the colors that I had initially talked about, and the reason I did that is that I had these core colors and I haven't really used them much, and I wanted to incorporate as many of them as I could in this palette. So for the greens, I used a sap green, and I also used a green gold, and you can see that here on this card. The other color that I had initially pulled out was a dark sap green, and I can achieve that by just mixing a little bit of blue into this sap green. So I figured that really wasn't necessary, and I grabbed the cobalt teal instead and put that in. And the bottom, these are all neutrals, and a lot of these are really fun, especially the moon glow, the shadow violet. These are, I love these colors, and they're great for adding little shadows to things. What else can I say about all of this? Toothpicks, handy dandy. Make sure to keep your hands clean. Otherwise, this will end up being a big mess. I've got my spray bottle. I just spray my hands and then wipe them off with the paper towel as I'm going. And the only other thing that you want to do is give these some time to dry before you pop them in your palette. And I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about this whole process, leave them in the comment section. I'm always checking the comments. And if you're wondering about color mixing, I do have a color mixing video here for newbies. So if you're new to color mixing and you want a couple of pointers that you can remember as you're working, go check out that video. It keeps it pretty basic, just a couple of rules to take with you. And be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And you never know when I'm going to drop a video. I do at least one video a week, and if I do any little extras like this today, you want to make sure that you get those. So yeah, thanks for being here. This was fun, and I'm glad I got to share this with you. So I will see you next time. Take care and have a great day.